The Book of the Dead. The Book of the Dead is the greatest collection of Egyptian death spells in the world. It was published in 1842 by German Egyptologist Carl Richard Lepsius. Carl gathered a massive collection of mortuary texts and put them together in one giant book. The ancient tome has 200 chapters detailing the trials of the afterlife and the magical roadmaps to reach the land of the dead. When scientists first started investigating ancient Egypt, they assumed the writing in tombs and on coffins was ancient scripture. It wasn't until much later, after the Rosetta Stone was deciphered, that the texts were revealed to be magical spells. The various chapters of the Book of the Dead were taken from a wide variety of places, spells written on fragmented pieces of papyrus, as well as those that were etched onto the bandages of mummies. The spells were also written on grave goods, sarcophagi lids, and tomb walls. But the oldest parts of the book come from the pyramid texts, which are 4,300 years old. After Carl published his collection of excerpts from the Egyptian Book of the Dead, a real copy was found in 1888 in Luxor. It was then translated and published in 1895 and is currently the best surviving version of the ancient book. It was drawn on a 78-foot-long piece of papyrus, which is now held at the British Museum. It was produced around the year 1275 BC for the royal scribe of Thebes. The copy details all the steps a soul must take while journeying through the trials of the underworld, facing the gods of death to reach their final fate. And now for number 9, but first it's shout-out time. I wanted to give a big thank you to Gary Wiley and Crystal Moore for supporting this channel. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already for more videos about amazing discoveries, or dinosaurs, or ancient books filled with secrets. The Book of Jasher. The Book of Jasher could be the ancient holy book that the original Bible was based on. Nobody knows exactly what the book is, though there are a lot of guesses. Scholars think it was likely a collection of Hebrew songs and poems from before the days of the Old Testament. The book is mentioned only in passing in a handful of biblical passages. It's mentioned in Joshua and Samuel as an obviously important book. There are 2 lines that say, "As it is written in the Book of Jasher." The mysterious book was obviously well known to whoever may have been reading the Old Testament. It's mentioned in such a way that the reader was assumed to know all about it. The Old Testament mentions the names of a lot of books modern people don't know about. There's mention of the Book of Gad, the seer, the Book of Samuel, the seer, the Book of Nathan, the prophet, and the Book of the Wars of the Lord. Whoever wrote the Bible referenced older material, leading many to believe the Bible was inspired by earlier religious works of the Hebrews. Unfortunately, there's no copy of the Book of Jasher, nor is there a single line from it that survived through the centuries. It may have been a proto-Bible, or it may have been a collection of songs. There's just no way for anyone to know, since not a single copy exists anymore. The Rig Veda. The Rig Veda is the oldest known scripture from the Hindu religion. It's one of the oldest texts written in any Indo-European language, likely composed in India around 1700 BC. It contains Sanskrit hymns to a variety of Hindu gods, with many of its ancient passages still being recited in modern Hindu prayers. The Rig Veda, unlike the Old Testament, isn't exactly filled with riveting stories and traditions. Throughout the 10 books and 1,028 hymns of the Rig Veda, there are mostly just prayers and praises, as well as cosmological notes and instructions for rituals. It's only in 2 books that you can find various questions about the origin of the universe and the nature of life. Experts think those 2 books, the 1st and the 10th, are the ones that were most recently written. First came the praises, then some scribes decided to add a bit more philosophy to the book. And as far as the experts can tell, the Rig Veda is the foundation for all other Hindu texts and scriptures. The Shams al-Ma'arif. The Shams al-Ma'arif promises that those who read it will gain knowledge of the divine. Not just that, but this ancient book has directions for communicating with supernatural beings and crafting magic charms. It's an occult grimoire that's been capturing human imagination since the 13th century. The book is also known as the Sun of Knowledge, written in Arabic about 700 years ago. It's a compilation of magic rituals, cosmic wisdom, and esoteric ideas. And it's been around long enough to become a source of great controversy. Those who respect the book say it's a spiritual manual, a book that can bring the reader closer to God through understanding the divine. But those who distrust the book say say it's sacrilegious and that whoever wrote it filled its pages with dark magic. Experts think it was likely written by a Sufi scholar. Sufism, for those unaware, is a mystical branch of Islam. Sufis have traditionally been more interested in the spirituality of Islam, practicing things like meditation and deep self-contemplation. Sufism is all about pursuing enlightenment and realizing one's own self, all to become closer to God. Sufi Muslims have a unique approach to the 99 names of God. They've always believed that each name holds a unique spiritual power that can only be accessed through meditative chants. But the Son of Knowledge goes a step beyond mainstream belief. The book offers directions on how to properly recite each of God's names to bestow the individual with divine power. When used properly, these invocations can turn you into a necromancer. The book says that using the correct chant can bring the dead to life or allow a person to speak directly to God. So you can see why the book is so controversial. Even among Sufi mystics, the Son of Knowledge is often seen as blasphemous, too deep into the occult to take seriously. The Magic of the Ancients. Arbatel, the Magic of the Ancients, is an occult grimoire from the European Renaissance of the 16th century. And like many medieval books of magic, its origins are unclear. It was likely written in 1575, though nobody can say for sure. The only confirmed information about the book is that it was published by the Italian printer Pietro Perna and was edited by Swiss physician Theodor Zwinger. Nobody knows who truly authored the book, though there's a lot of speculation. Some believe that it was Jacques Gory who wrote the grimoire. Jacques belonged to the same mysterious group as the editor and the printer. All three were followers of Paracelsus, an ancient occultist. Unlike the Sufis' book of magic that focuses on the power of God's name, Arbatel is all about nature. The book details the relationship between humanity, nature, and the heavens. It contains pieces on theology, lessons on the occult, and instructions for magic. In 1617, a pair of professors at the University of Marburg in Germany tried to use Arbatel as a textbook, only to find themselves in big trouble, and as a result, at least one student was expelled. A few years later, in 1623, Jean-Michel Montgolfier was accused of using incantations from the book and practicing witchcraft. The book is still popular to this day. While most agree the text isn't going to bestow anyone with magic powers, it still offers ancient spiritual advice. And some of that advice is just as relevant today as it was almost 500 years ago. The Greek Magical Papyri. It's hard to find a more magical and more ancient tome than the Greek Magical Papyri. It's an awe-inspiring collection of magic spells from Greece, Rome, and Egypt. Not only does it have spells, but it's also filled with medicinal recipes, curious legends, and dark rituals. Scholars believe the collection of spells was gathered between the 2nd century and 5th century BC, when the Roman Empire was at its height. Most of the book, which was scrawled on papyri, was acquired by a diplomat in the 19th century. The diplomat, Jean d'Anastasy, supposedly purchased the magical script from a collector in Thebes, Egypt. But because it was considered heretical, nobody examined the ancient text very seriously. In fact, it took over 100 years for it to be completely translated. The script is now available for anyone who wants to read it. It's a unique glimpse into the magical traditions of several different cultures. While heavily influenced by Egyptian Coptic beliefs, these spells also carry a subtle hint of Babylonian influence. There are examples of rituals with hints of Judaism and influences from ancient Greece. It's a diverse collection of magic with love spells and victory charms. There are incantations for revenge and ways to invoke the gods to do your bidding. Sure, maybe you can use the book to make someone fall in love with you, but if you're more interested in the history of it, the Greek Magical Papyri is still great to read. It was likely the result of Egypt being the epicenter of cultural trade for over 1,000 years. The Greeks showed up in 332 BC, then the Romans in 30 BC. But there was also a Persian invasion, plus Egypt's long relationship with Babylon and Israel. All these various cultures brought their magics to Egypt, and many of them wound up on a single surviving roll of papyri. If you found an ancient grimoire, would you attempt to cast the spells within its pages? Let us know in the comments below, and while you're at it, subscribe to the channel. The Book of Deer. The Book of Deer is a slightly misleading name because the book is a copy of the New Testament. It's a Bible embellished with gold and silver, and it was created in a Pictish monastery at least 1,000 years ago, maybe more. The reason the book is so exciting is that it contains what's believed to be the oldest written example of Gaelic. In fact, the book might have the oldest Scottish writing of any kind. The Book of Deer isn't just a copy of the Bible. The monks who wrote it in either the 9th or 10th century took advantage of the margins and blank spaces in the book. In the empty spots, they wrote accounts of their daily life. The main bulk of the text is religious, while the rest talks about what the monks were doing day to day. It's a fascinating glimpse into the past. Archaeologists have been trying desperately to find the monastery where the book was originally written. They know it's somewhere in Aberdeenshire, they just can't pinpoint an exact location. However, there's one place that looks really promising. In 2017, researchers excavated an ancient building in Old Deer Village where they found pottery and a hearth from 1147 AD. They also found evidence that the structure was built on an even older building, which could be the original monastery where the monks worked. The Avesta. The Avesta is the greatest book in the Zoroastrian religion. Zoroastrianism has endured for longer than Christianity has even existed. It was founded as a religion 3,500 years ago, and people still practice it around the globe today, primarily in Iran and India. People in Persia were followers of Zoroaster 1,500 years before Jesus Christ showed up in Jerusalem. At the heart of this ancient religion is a collection of texts called the Avesta. The book is believed to be somebody's attempt at collecting every scrap of Zoroastrianism myth prior to the 3rd century AD. The book is unique in that whoever wrote it did so in the Avestan language. But you won't find the language anywhere outside of the book. The entire language exists only through the text in the Avesta. Amazingly, nowhere else has a single line of Avestan ever been found. Though of course it wasn't just written, it was spoken too. Avestan as a language was passed down verbally from old priests to young priests. This allowed Zoroastrianism to preserve their unique language of prayer perfectly by teaching it to the newest generation for centuries. Most of the Avesta contains recitals of the Zoroastrian priests during ceremonies. It details the rituals of the priests, who likely had their own smaller books to speak from. It also contains myths told by the followers of Zoroastrianism. Unfortunately though, this is a religion of loss. It's believed that the book could only contain as little as a quarter of the original mythology of the religion. Much of their history has been lost, with what little remains contained in this one book. The Book of Soige. The Book of Soige is by far one of the most diabolical books of the Middle Ages. It's an arcane treatise that takes the reader deep into the realm of evil magic and the paranormal. The mysterious tome is divided into 36 sections, covering just about everything you can imagine. Topics like medieval medicine, the primary elements, and astrological signs. The Book of Soige tries to draw a connection between astrology and universal evil. Nobody knows who the author of the book is, but there was one famous scholar who grew obsessed with it. John Dee, the famous occultist of the Elizabethan age, supposedly lost his mind trying to unravel its secrets. John was consumed by a gnawing need to understand its mysteries. But sadly for John, he died in 1608 before he could solve the puzzle of the book. After his death, the book disappeared for almost 400 years. It became a thing of myth, a legendary book thought to be as real as King Arthur's magical sword. But then 2 copies were found in 1994. It's been just over 30 years, and scholars are still trying to unravel the enigma of the Book of Soige, and its author continues to elude historians. The Black Pullet. The Black Pullet is a grimoire from the 18th century that promises 2 main things. The book contains science for creating magical rings and talismans, but it also includes lessons on the art of necromancy. The author of the book, like with so many other grimoires, is unknown. Scholars think he was an anonymous French officer in Napoleon's army. The text isn't just a series of lessons and instructions. It's framed around the narrative of a French officer fighting on the side of the French during an expedition to Egypt. It's as much a novel as it is a book of necromancy. In The Black Pullet, the soldiers' unit is attacked by a group of Bedouin soldiers, and in the aftermath of everything, he's the only one left alive. The French officer is rescued by a Turkish man who takes him into a secret apartment within one of the Great Pyramids. The mysterious man then nurses the soldier back to health while sharing his vast knowledge of magic and the occult. It's difficult to say if the book is a grimoire or a piece of fiction written by a bored soldier. It's a little of both, which makes it extremely unique compared to other magic books. It offers lessons on how to interact with the dead, while also telling a compelling story. What's your favorite ancient book of magic? And do you believe any of these grimoires could really be used to cast spells and summon demons? Let us know what you think in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.